Welcome to the Modern Mythos Podcast, a show dedicated to Call of Cthulhu and other investigative horror games. I'm Seth Skorkowski.
And I'm John Hook. Together, we'll discuss writing, game mastering, and player tips and how to apply them to your table. And today, we are joined once again by Chaosium's line editor for Call of Cthulhu, Mike Mason. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Hi, guys. It's nice to be back so soon.
So soon.
Always a
Quick
pleasure.
Quick turnaround. Well, thank you for being back again. In this episode, we wanted to talk about how to run Call of Cthulhu with little to no preparations.
And this is one that I'm actually really excited about because this is my personal weakness. I might be considered an over prepper, if anything else, when it comes to Call of Cthulhu adventures. I can do a dungeon crawl like just on the fly, no problem. But for Call of Cthulhu, that's kind of just making it up as I go is actually one of my big weak areas. So I'm glad we got Mike here for this.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. But I've got some thoughts. So let's start with Mike. Mike, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you were going to or need to run Call of Cthulhu with little to no prep?
Yeah, numerous times, to be honest. To be honest, just to kind of give a baseline. Normally, if I'm running a scenario or even a campaign, and it's 9 out of 10 times it's a published one throughout all the time I've been playing. I've either written it myself or I've run a published adventure. When I've written it myself, I don't need to prep because I know it already because I wrote it and I have my notes in front of me. So that put that to the side. But in terms of prepping a normal game, I just read the adventure through. I might make a couple of notes on a page, but basically I just run it from the book. I just because the way we try to structure scenarios is that they're fairly logically progressing. So I can just look at the section in front of me in the book and then carry on through. However, when I've not done that and I've had no prep, I have two ways of doing it. One is the real kind of zero prep, and one is an incipient of prep. And I'll describe both of them, but I'll start with the zero prep approach, which is something I did actually very recently. A group of old friends, we've been playing D&D online for during the lockdown and so on. And we got a little tired of that, and the guys wanted to do something different, and they actually suggested they wanted to play Call of Cthulhu. And so naturally, they all decided that I should run it. I was very keen for one of them to run it, and I could have played Call of Cthulhu for a change. However, such is life, and my penance is that I tend to have to run Call of Cthulhu when I'm involved in a game. So I said, yeah, I'll run it. And what I did, I just told them all before the session, make up a character. It's 1920s England, and I had a little think, and I just said the scenario is going to be about a book, and the book is on sale, and you're going to be going to purchase this book either for yourself or on behalf of somebody else or a museum or a library. You decide why you want this book. And that's all you need to worry about, really. And the other factor I took into account when I then prepped it, which I did about 5 minutes before the actual session, I knew that the guys wanted a kind of a classic Call of Cthulhu style game, just to kind of hit the right kind of notes that they were looking for. I just decided that I'd already decided it was about a book, which is kind of classic Call of Cthulhu. It was going to be set in a kind of a country house in the middle of nowhere, England. And I also decided that there should be crows involved. For some reason, I just thought crows would be cool. And also, I think I'd been listening to John running the code scenario. And so in my head, I had kind of messing around with time in my head. So I just wrote that down. So I had country house, a weird tome that does something, time distortion, and crows. And then we started the scenario. So starting the scenario, I said to the guys, okay, Tell me why you're here. Why are you in this country house? I did tell them that the setup was that the owner of the house, him and his wife, have put this book on the market. He's a private collector, and you've heard about it, and obviously you've been invited to come and view the book and make an offer. That was the setup. And so I then said, so why are you here? And then they all went round explaining why they were there, who they're representing or not, whether any of them were working together or working against each other, that kind of thing, just general kind of, player character background and setup. And so I had the husband and wife kind of talking about the book. The husband, I had him being a bit strange. I had him kind of talking, like having two conversations at the same time. So he was kind of having a conversation with the PCs, but he also seemed to be having another conversation with somebody who wasn't there, just because I thought that would be cool. And it would freak the players out, and it kind of, they were going, "Whoa, what's going on?" I'm thinking to myself, I don't really know, but it's working, so let's carry on. And so I had this going on. I had this time distortion thing on. As they went into rooms, they would sort of see themselves leaving the room through the opposite door. So there was kind of like time delay or time repetition or cyclic time happening in the house. And, just because that would be weird and that would mess with them. And so, I just would throw that in at random points. And then the crows, they had the initial meeting. They wanted to look at the book, and the guy was like, well, I get the book out, but I don't want you to, it's very valuable. Unless you're wearing gloves, you can't touch it. And all that kind of, barriers to stop them playing with the book. But, they worked their way around that, and they were handling the book in about half an hour anyway, and that was all cool. But while they're handling the book, I was able to sort of say to, one of the PCs who's not really involved, he's sort of sat on the margin at the moment, that he's hearing a tapping in the room, and he kind of looks to where the tapping is and sits at the window, and he can see a crow at the window tapping on the window, which is kind of, he decides that's a little freaky for some reason. And he's very interested in the crows now. So he's watching the crow out the window, and then another crow lands on the windowsill. And there's, by the end of the scene, there's three crows all kind of looming in at the window, tapping on, tapping. They want to come in. What do you want to do? Oh, well, I think I better open the window. And everyone else says, no! But he opens it anyway. The crows fly in, and they start flying around the room, and it's all chaos. And then one of them's dive bombing the PC and pecking him, kind of thing. He's not really doing it. I'm not. This is not combat. This is just, he's pecking at you. Maybe you lost a hit point of damage, but not really. I don't go that far. Just, once I said they're flying in the rooms and they're flying around. The players then made the chaos by trying to capture the birds and turn them out the window. They were like coming up with, we're grabbing the curtains off the walls. We're trying to make this net. We're filling luck rolls. We're smashing valuable antiques as we go. The butler's running in, going, "What the hell are you doing?" He then runs off, comes back with a massive kind of broom, which he starts beating the PCs with to get them out of the room so he can get the crows out. It's all chaos. They finally kind of get rid of the crows. And then that all becomes like a running motif through it all. So whenever there's a suitable moment or a pause, they hear tapping again. And every time they hear tapping, there's more crows at the window. So, at the end of the summer, there's like hundreds of crows at every window, all tapping in, smashing the glass, trying to get in. There's time distortions happening. They walk into rooms and see crows in there suddenly, and then they're suddenly gone. They see themselves walking through rooms. They have conversation with the butler, who then leaves and then re-enters the room through another door, kind of like, who has no memory of the conversation they've just had because the butler is from an earlier time loop. All these kind of things. And mainly it was, so I kind of set up what were basically, a weird couple, a kind of a very conscientious butler, crazy crows, and time distortion. And then in the middle of it, there's a book, and the book really didn't do anything, although legitimately the book's manifestation or emanations were perhaps causing all of this. But by just repeating these tropes, and increasing the drama with them, increasing the ante with them as they go, the players just got more and more involved. They got more and more stupid as they went by just getting even crazier and, breaking windows and having fights with the butler who then couldn't remember they'd had a fight and then would come back and just suddenly launch themselves when they saw him again because they were meeting the butler at different times. And so they didn't, they all knew it was something to do with the book, clearly, because it's Call of Cthulhu and there's a book involved. So clearly it's to do with that. So I didn't make any fuss about the book. I just let them decide that it was all the book, and really just threw these kind of weird events at them for like 3 hours. And until finally they decided that the only way to stop all of this and to escape, because obviously at one point they tried to leave, and of course with the time distortion I could have them leaving the door and then walking back through the front door. They could never leave. They were caught in the time loop kind of thing. So the only way to do this was either to kill everyone or to destroy the book, and they decided destroying the book was probably the better option. So after dealing with crows and butlers trying to stop them burning the book and all the rest of it, they finally got the book into the fireplace and burnt it down. Then it all kind of turned to ash around them and it phased in the darkness. And then they all woke up on the moors in the ruins of this mansion, and with no one else there. They're just there, wet, sodden in the morning dew kind of thing, with this ruined thing that looks like it's like been ruined for hundreds of years. It's not like smoking ruins. It's an abandoned ruin with grass growing over the brickwork and so on. And they kind of, we did like a little end cap where they kind of walked into the nearest village and said, that ruin over there, what happened to it? Oh, that burnt down 100 years ago, kind of thing. And we just left it there, kind of thing. And it was, there wasn't a big mystery as such to deal with, because obviously mysteries do require a bit more prep, because it's like designing a crime mystery. You've got to, who's done it, what are the clues, how do they get them, what are they, how do they pick them up, and that does involve a bit of prep work. But for a Call of Cthulhu scenario, that where you just want to entertain the players and present them with things to react to and to engage with them, it worked very well. And they all had a splendid time, dealing with crows. And many weeks later,
Right.
I just kept getting sent, pictures of crows, which I guess it worked or something. But that was my kind of zero prep game. And I guess the lesson I would sort of say is that, I just pick 3 things that you can use, and 3 plot devices to make things happen. It could have been bugs coming up through the floor. It could have been an artifact. It could have been a spell going wrong. It could have been, whatever it is that you feel in the mood for. Pick those 3 things, and then have a very small number of NPCs, because you haven't got to worry about remembering them all. You can keep it really simple. It could just be 2 NPCs, even 1 potentially, but 3 is a good number, because it gives you something to play off. It allows you to play. You've got the weird guy, you've got the straight guy, and you've got the mysterious guy, or whoever they are, and you can play off those accordingly with the PCs. So that as a kind of a formula can work pretty well. Obviously, there's in any keepering and GMing any role-playing game, there is a certain level of confidence, and obviously, I'm a fairly confident keeper because I've been doing it for 40 years. So it is, I guess, in some cases, it may be a little easier for me because of I've done it a lot. But even still, that kind of just narrowing things down to the basics and just picking, very 3 simple things, and picking a very straightforward location. Picking an environment the players already know, so you haven't got to worry about explaining it. So I picked a country house. We all know what that is. We all know what it looks like. We all know what the rooms are going to be like. We all know there could be secret passages. We all know there's going to be a cellar and attic. Rather than saying I'm setting it on a 1987 atomic submarine, which, okay, I've got a rough idea but really, I would soon run out of knowledge about what I would expect to find on an atomic submarine. So I said it's something that I know, and the players also know. So so we can concentrate on the action rather than the setting. That's the other the other kind of go-to on that one. Does that
Yeah,
all make sense?
That's fantastic. Because it strikes me that having skills like this, developing improv skills like this, is helpful for more than just having what sounded like an amazing fun time, just having a drop-in game of Call of Cthulhu, but being able to improv and being able to adjust on the fly is incredibly helpful during a campaign when your players really kind of go off script, if you will. They begin to try and push the boundaries and explore outside the lines of what has already been kind of defined as the mystery is within this area, right? And then they're like, but the answer must be beyond that hill. And they just
players
want
will
to go
always force you to improvise your butt off, no matter no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
There's a with a long campaign. I mean, I've done this, and in fact, I've done it. I've been as a player and also as a keeper. A long campaign like Masters and Method. It's a big campaign. It takes a long time to play it all if you're going to play the whole thing. And I don't know about you guys, but I mean, we are all humans, and sometimes when you get to the gaming session after a busy week at work and you're all a bit tired, and sometimes 9 out of 10 times you're all turned up and you're raring to go, and you've been waiting for the game, and you're gonna have a great session, and it's all wonderful. And then there's the times when we all get together where you're really tired, you've had a horrible week at work, and really the intricacies of the clue networks in masks escapes you for that night, and actually all you want to do is run around and hit things, or chase the red herring or whatever it may be. So when I sense that in the group, when I kind of go like, actually, what we need tonight is a night away from the main plot. We need to allow the players to be a little bit wacky for the night, but in a safe environment. Almost, we need a safe room where they can be wacky and not ruin the rest of the plot. So they don't run off and kill the big NPC before they actually find out the clues and all that kind of thing they could do. So it's a good way to kind of then, if you can improv, a kind of like we would call it a red herring, but you improv this kind of off-track mini adventure. It's not really a mini adventure. It's a mini encounter or a scene or an event is maybe the best way to think about it. So on the way to the museum or the house in the marshes or the up the Nile or wherever it is, on the way there, you introduce a scenario a bit like Deadlight, as in, on the way, this happens. It's got nothing to do with the campaign, but it's weird, and it will allow you to blow off steam and not worry too much. And the consequences of what you do in this adventure won't affect the big campaign in terms of killing off your characters and all the rest of them, because it's not going to be a deadly thing. But it will allow you to kind of just have a bit of escapism from the campaign and refresh your batteries tonight. Come back to next week when you're all ready to play again effectively. Some groups do it by just stopping the campaign for a week and playing a board game, and that's another option. But
sure,
if you're trying to do it in game, it's a good way to do it. And again, a safe environment like the ghost house or the ghost tomb that see somebody crawling out on the road, all bloodied. They stop the car and they've just crawled out of this kind of hole in the ground. And can you help me? Can you help me? And they're pulled in. They have to help. What group of people are going to go? Oh no, we're just going to drive on by. You pull them in. They have a mini adventure, and they come out. And if you want to make it really safe, you just make it all a big ghost story, which is what I do. Make it all a big ghost story. So there are ways to kind of use this improv and do it in a really safe way that doesn't ruin the rest of the game, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, it makes sense. There's that old scenario, and I'm probably going to horribly mispronounce this, the Marietta. It's just a ship that has like a bunch of stuff that could happen on a ship. It's kind of like, don't even use all of these, but just spread these out among the various voyages your PCs might take. So it could be on your way, across the Atlantic for your mission, you suddenly have to stop an assassination attempt against this nobleman, and you have this little adventure on a ship, and then you land at port and you continue on with your adventure like nothing happened. Or maybe you've got an NPC that they'll call on later on or something, but it's kind of a little one-off with the same characters. It's just has nothing really to do with the larger plot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some people could listen to this and think, oh yeah, but you kind of you're running off the plot and anything could happen, and I guess the thing is, yeah, that's true, but it's trying to just work with the players, but sometimes you've got to kind of feel the sense of the group. What's the mood of the group? Because sometimes it's going to be we want to get deep into the plot. Sometimes it's going to be we want to talk and talk, and we want to plan and plan, and we want to go shopping. Sometimes it's going to be we want to shoot something, we want to go shoot the ghouls or whatever it is. And you've got to kind of feel the mood for the group and kind of help to kind of facilitate that to some degree whilst keeping the game together. Because if you don't, that's when games can fall apart, and suddenly you'll find that everyone's in Norway when they should have been in Africa. You don't know how they got there because it was, you've got to kind of watch those kind of strange, real kind of yards out from the actual main campaign. But yeah, no, absolutely. That kind of a bit of, and it could just be, you could prep this by just, when you have a moment or you have an idea, keep a notebook with you or put it on your phone or whatever. Whenever, as you go about your daily life, ideas will come to you. Just stick them in a list. And I just keep a notebook with a list of ideas that may one day turn into scenarios or maybe not. But if I need an idea at the start of a game or in the middle of a game, even, I can open that notebook and I've got a load of ideas, some of which won't be suitable, but some of them I think, actually, I could use that. Or the simple fact of looking at a lot of ideas in the space of 30 seconds will spark a new idea in my head going, oh yeah, well, I'll do that. And it just gives your mind a bit of time to breathe, to come up with the idea that's suitable for what you're looking for in that particular moment of time.
There is I think, an amazing example of exactly this on YouTube. Chaosium recently sponsored a charity game for, it was for prostate cancer. It's I forgot the name of the charity. Zero prostate cancer, and it was funny because the professional actors and improv actors who were running and playing in this game, they were running my scenario, What's in the Cellar. And I was very intrigued by this. I was very excited. So I tuned in to watch this on YouTube. I missed the live showing of it, but they quickly went off script, and I'm like, I was wondering, where's the keeper going with this? This is way out of left field. And it was an amazing, fun 2-hour ride. And then he closed it by going, and there were no spoilers in this presentation of What's in the Cellar. We just had fun. Please go and check out the scenario. And I was like, this was amazing. And these guys had a fantastic time of just, following the leader and just having fun in the moment. And it can be a fantastic game.
Absolutely. I've got the other idea I'll tell you about now, and I actually I've got another idea as well, which I've just remembered. But I'll tell you the idea.
The beauty of improv.
The beauty of improv. The other idea, the other way of doing it is to use a product I designed for this exact reason. So when I was designing the Keeper card decks for Call of Cthulhu, obviously their primary purpose is kind of just little kind of helpful player aids or keeper aids. So there's a bunch of characters in one deck. If you need an NPC, you can draw, and if you need a replacement PC really quickly, you can quickly fan out a card and find an aviator or a doctor, and here you go. Here's an instant character for you to play in the game. Likewise, there's spell cards and weapon cards. All useful kind of play aid kind of cards. that's the primary purpose. However, the secondary purpose and the real reason why I designed them was to help you design a scenario. And so, as an example of this, I picked out 2 decks before I came here. I picked out the Curious Characters deck, and I picked out the Unfortunate Events deck. And what I did is I pulled out 3 cards from each deck, and that's what I would do to run a scenario from with no prep. So the ones I picked out were Human Combustion, A Note in a Book, and Strange Melody. And then the characters that came out were Father Jack O'Donnell, Clint Madeira, who's a drifter, and Zebedee Silver, who's a cult leader. And so, and I'm just looking at these cards now and I'm thinking, okay, what's the plot? What am I going to do? Or I'm going to say, okay, so I'm going to say Father Jack O'Connell is the guy who calls in the PCs because somebody in his flock has burned to death, and all the evidence would point to it being human spontaneous combustion because they can find no evidence of how this person caught fire and died. It's a mystery. So that's my 2 things there. And then I'm going to decide that obviously by the body or something to do with the body, maybe I'll bring in, maybe the person that died was a drifter and his best mate is Clint Madeira, the other character I picked out, who's a drifter. And maybe just before this, before he died, he gave Clint a book. So when the PCs track Clint down as his best friend, he says, well, he gave me this book. And when they go through the book, I don't know what the book is yet. We can make that up as we go. But in the book is a note, because that's what the card just told me. There's a note in the book. And in the book, there's a note. And I'm going to say, well, then maybe the note was written by the guy who died, whose name I haven't decided yet. And the note tells me that it's like a diary. He's been writing a diary in this book in the margins because he's a drifter and he had the book with him and did have a notebook. And he keeps talking about this strange melody he keeps hearing in his head, or he keeps going around and hearing it played. He walks by a wireless set and the tune's playing, but nobody else seems to know what tune he's talking about, because when he tries to describe it, they kind of don't. They look at him funny. They almost they can't hear it, or they hear something else. And then, and clearly behind it all is the cultist Zebedee Silver. I don't know exactly why, but he's got some tune, maybe some spell or something that he's caused to happen that, the guy who died got too close to or whatever. And that's probably enough to start, because then I'm just going to make it up as I go. But I've got the baseline there. I know what's going on. I know who the villain is. I know who the contacts for the PCs are, the priest and the drifter. I know there's a note they're going to find, and I know there's a strange melody that I can then use to mess with the players and get them to start hearing it and start, feeling that they're in danger. And maybe there's other, maybe Clint is going to spontaneously combust as well soon. Maybe he's touched the flames, as it were. So that's the other way, because that's how I designed the cards to do it.
Ridiculously impressed right now.
So am I, because I'm already getting these ideas. Like this tune is a kind of like mythos fuse, and once that fuse burns all the way down, boom, your body goes up in flames, right?
Yeah, when the song finishes or something.
Yep.
And I'm just riffing on the King in Yellow. I'm just riffing on the yellow sign. Instead of a sign that's, if you've been playing Cthulhu for more than a year, you already know about the yellow sign. It's like saying another deep one, isn't it? So just change it. It's nothing to do with the King in Yellow. It's not Aster. It's not the yellow sign. It's a strange melody. And then I've left that open. And if during the game I have a really cool idea that's got something to do with Cthulhu or Yog-Sothoth or Bing Bang Zoom, the monster I've just made up in my head, then that's cool. I'm leaving myself room to kind of grow the story as I play, because I don't necessarily need all of it nailed down straight away. I can let it organically grow, because as we all know, players will have ideas and they will tell you their ideas. And often those ideas are better than what you started with. So you think, well, I'm not going to do exactly what you think it is, but I'm going to twist what you just said and make it even worse. And then everyone think I'm really cool because I, really outthought everyone or whatever. But I'm just cheating, really.
That is awesome. I have also employed some improv skills in some of these games. I'm a big fan of early Call of Cthulhu. I love the haunting, and I love how the first and second editions of Call of Cthulhu, which was just recently reprinted with the new box set. PDFs are out now. Print is coming soon. One of the things that's been kind of brought back is a scenario called the Brockford House. And the Brockford House is kind of special for me because it was the second Call of Cthulhu adventure that I've played. My buddy who owned the game, first edition, ran us through the haunting. Obviously, that was first. But second was the Brockford House. But I didn't know it was the Brockford House. And I will say this, the Brockford House it has a really great structure. There's a neat house. There's a neat mystery under it. But it doesn't really have a plot to it. It's kind of this shell. And I've thought about this recently, and actually with a recent online convention hosted by our good friends at the Good Friends of Jackson Elias podcast, I ran a version of the Brockford House that I was just basically making up and playing as we went. I called it, and I based it also partially on a vacation that I just recently took with my family in real life. But I was calling it VRBO, Vacation Rental by a Cult. I have recently discovered and visited some islands on Lake Superior that are part of Wisconsin, and this island is beautiful and small and just fun. And the house, the VRBO house that we stayed in, was on this really cool cliff. It was a 40-foot cliff overlooking Lake Superior. And it got me thinking about the Brockford House, because I know it's also a house set on a cliff and all this stuff. I was like, this is so cool. So I kind of reskinned it as being in Wisconsin, and I gave it a plot, which is it's one of those themed VRBOs where you go and the house isn't just a house. It's kind of like a special little theme thing that you go, and I made it a murder house. Like supposedly the house had a history of being a home to a serial killer, and so people pay to go to this house and kind of see it decorated in the 1930s style, even though it's modern day, and see little clues and things that have been and dioramas that have been pre-set up in the house. But unfortunately, our current visitors have a more visceral experience, and so I was just kind of making this up as I went, and I was doing things like leveraging tropes, because I like ghost stories, so I kind of pulled in some ghost stuff, and evil that was the evil cult that's kind of creeping around and stuff, and it was fun, and it was able to leverage on tropes that I've read in books and seen in movies, and kind of and experiences from real life, being at this actual VRBO on a 40-foot cliff. I was able to kind of bring that setting to life in this game. And you, as improvs, we draw upon a lot of resources and to bring them to the game.
One of the things I like about ghosts, just in general for gaming, is they don't have rules. If you're using just about any other classic monster, there are rules to it that everybody knows. You're kind of like, well, which rules are we going by? Does silver hurt werewolves in this one, or do regular bullets? Do vampires have reflections? Do they not? Ghosts, it's kind of always a free for all as far as like how do the rules of this ghost work? And then the next time you meet a ghost, they could go by completely different rules. It's like the one kind of horror monster that has never really gotten stapled down in any way as far as what kind of the kind of the cultural agreement of what the rules are about it. So it's kind of a great wild card, because you can really just make it up as you go, and you're not breaking the rules of a ghost. because they don't really have any, other than somebody clearly died.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely true. I think ghosts are very versatile because it doesn't have to be a ghost. It can be, well, what is the ghost? Is it a dead person, an animal, the building, the street, the year? It's like the Brigadoon or
the psychic impression,
or the Herschel Gordon Lewis's 2000 Maniacs. Where the whole village is the ghost. It's wonderfully versatile. You're absolutely right. It did remind me of a fourth option for you. You can just take a film. You can just decide to rerun your version of a film. If it may be that you as a keeper are the only one that's seen it. In that case, great. But if the players have seen it too, that doesn't matter. That's fine, because you can just tell them, okay, we're going to do our version of The Thing, or our version of Alien, or our version of whatever film you think would be a cool thing you want to rerun. And you can literally say, okay, so these are the characters. We all know who they are, who want to be who. You instantly got a kind of bunch of characters, and you can, do the quick roll-up method and just kind of knock up a few skills and decide, well, that's the professor. Clearly, he knows all the science stuff, so we'll just say that's 70% in all that. So, and then you just get into it and you just run the plot. But then it's inevitable, as you start to run the plot, the players will do what they would do, not what happens in the film. So things will change, and it becomes your story, and it becomes a completely different story, to be honest, most of the time. But you've got a backbone to follow that you all know. You all know that, if let's just say you do Murder on the Orient Express, someone has just been killed. What are you going to do about it? And how. And then, because it's Call of Cthulhu and you can do whatever you like, you can throw in weird stuff. You can throw in ghosts. You can throw in the Migo, looking in through the carriage window as the train's going along. Whatever is going to be cool for you. So you can use the film as a kind of a backbone to do that, and just recreate the film. And even if you just redo the film exactly as it plays out, you probably also have a lot of fun doing it, because it's a film you all like, and so therefore it's going to be fun. I mean, somebody said we're going to just play Jaws, the film, as a role play game using Call of Cthulhu. I'd just go, great, it's my favorite film. Why wouldn't I? Let me Quint, please let me be Quint. And if I still get eaten in half at the end of the film, I'm going to be more than happy. I'm going to be overjoyed, because yes, I got eaten, whatever it is. So that's another, if you're really stuck for an idea and you've got no ideas at all, just pick a film, just run it, and you'll have a great time.
But, I love that idea, because, going back to something you said earlier about with doing a low prep Call of Cthulhu game, sometimes a mystery plot, something that normally would take a lot of thought and forethought and planning for, it needs to be sacrificed. If you are going to leverage a film or a book or something that you're going to kind of recreate, whether it's as true as possible or a version of that recreation, it comes with its plot. It comes with timing devices, so that when you say the storm has started, the characters are aware of the storm, and many of them may have been anticipating, when is that storm going to start, right? You can bring in those elements, and it can be a more in-depth kind of impromptu game. That's a really great idea. I like that.
I just had this thought. I had E.T. flashed in my head, and I just thought, okay, what if you do E.T., but instead of it being E.T., it's a Migo, and you're playing Elliot's friends, and so that the last time you saw Elliot, you're all playing Call of Cthulhu together, or D&D, or whatever you want to say you were playing, and then you're at home, and then Elliot's not been in school for some days, and so you're a bit worried, and you're due to all go around his house tonight anyway for a game the next session. So you'll turn up, and he's acting really weird, and he keeps looking down to the cellar or whatever, and then there's something, you hear noises, strange kind of gibbering and strange sounds coming, and you find this Migo, that injured Migo, baby Migo, I don't know, and you just And then the government turn up, and then what are you going to do? You're going to save the ego. It's going to go back to its parents. Or I don't know what, I'm just thinking that would be crazy. That would be good fun.
Just the idea of taking all scenes from E.T. and just covering the alien of that with some sort of fungus fly monster as they're riding around at their bikes, or go down there and it's wearing a little hat with a flower in it and it's eating Reese's Pieces is just delightful.
Yeah, you see, we can be together forever.
I love it. I love that Amigo taking Elliot to the stars in a brain jar. That'd be awesome.
See, mine is like when you brought up movies. Mine's I don't know. My standby is always like the Maltese Falcon, where you've got a bunch of people. Some of them, most of them are not necessarily the best people, and they want some MacGuffin, historical idol, and that's pretty much it. When I was kind of going through, but before this, like, okay, how would I recommend doing an improv game? I love the fact that Mike, who is far more experienced at this, pretty much nailed every single thing I put. This is how I would recommend doing it. Limiting the NPCs. And I also said 3 was kind of the magic number as far as you're not too many, but enough that you can use. You got your protagonist, possibly your friend or someone who's helping you, and then somebody in the middle to deliver information or be the example victim. Limiting the space was another one, which Mike brought up. Well, we were all in this old English country manor. So it's like, great. So we don't have the entire city of New York that they're running across. They're now limited to a building or a ship or something like that. That way we can kind of keep this contained for the duration. And the other one was letting the players decide a lot of the aspects, which he had brought up with, like, why do you want this book? You guys figure that one out, and we'll play off of that. Give me a little bit of the seeds. You get ownership over it, but which is great. They're immediately invested if they have ownership over some part of the adventure, such as they decided this aspect of the plot, and you don't have to come up with that on your own either. And so I was real happy that on my list. Okay,
I've got my.
I would recommend.
The film one was the one I thought of while we were talking, but the third one actually riffs off what you just said, Seth, and was about player input into the whole thing, because there is the kind of real kind of workshop version, and most of the time with traditional role-playing games, and Call of Cthulhu is a traditional role-playing game in that sense. There's a keeper who knows the plot and the players interact, and normally it's a mystery of some kind. So the keeper knows the mystery, the players have got to find it out, and you facilitate them through to the end. There's but there's no reason why it has to be like that. Especially if you're improvising a session, you can't just sit down with your players and say, okay, so what is the story we're going to play tonight? What and ask each player to throw in. It's like using the deck of cards I just said, but rather than a deck of cards, you use the players. Okay, so give me an event where are we? What big event has just happened? Has there been a fire? Has there been a plague? Has there been explosion? Is I don't know, murders? Whatever it may be. And get the player to chip in. It's literally like a workshop. You could have a whiteboard or a big bit of paper in the middle of the table. You could write, get everyone to write down 3 ideas. It could be anything. And then as a keeper, you pick out, you can either say to the players, well, I'm going to pick that one, and that one, and let them know. Or you could just say, okay, I've got your ideas. I'm going to use, the ones that kind of, I can structure together, and we're going to run this scenario partly together. Because it may be at certain points I'm going to say to the players, okay, so what happens now? Where do we go now? And it isn't just quite saying, which lead they want to follow. It's actually getting them to direct where the scenario goes next. It's kind of like, well, okay, well, let's say we've done all that research. Let's say, although we haven't role played going to the bar and interviewing everyone there, and we haven't been to the police station. Let's just say we've done that. What would we have found out? And you can then just summarize, okay, well, you found this. And to be honest, it kind of all points to the lonely lighthouse, a mile offshore, or whatever it is that's written down on a bit of paper, or the old abandoned mine, or the whatever idea the players came up with. And you say, so okay, so we're going to just say that everything points to going to the lighthouse. So let's just start with you. You're on a rowboat and you're just pulling up against the lighthouse shore and getting on. Okay, and we'll go from there. And you can jump, just cut scenes, and move it along rather than getting bogged down in too much minutiae that you haven't planned for anyway. And just summarize things and help the players to kind of work through the scenes that they want to enjoy the most. And that's another way of doing it. It obviously, you need to be upfront with the players and say, this is how we're going to run it tonight. It's going to be a little different, but you're going to take a more active involvement, not just in the role playing of your characters, but in the actual design of the scenario, because we're going to get to an end. And it's either going to be a natural end, or if we're not sure, we're going to throw it. I'm going to go around the table and everyone's going to throw me a potential conclusion, and we're all going to vote on which one we think is the coolest. And then we're going to play that one. There's no reason why you can't do that.
That sounds like an amazing session 0 to me. You're going to start a new campaign. Maybe you haven't even decided what that campaign's going to be, but you've made characters, and we're going to establish that these characters have a bit of history together, doing something together. And let's do that. This sounds like that would be a great way to do that.
No, that's brilliant. There was a recording that Sandy Petersen did at a GenCon years ago, where he took audience ideas and wrote a Call of Cthulhu scenario pretty much on the fly, and he actually ended up writing a really badass scenario on the fly of people kind of yelling out ideas at him. It was extremely impressive to me to watch how he wove together a bunch of random things into what looked like a plot that had a lot of thought put into it. And he just kind of does this in front of you. And so your idea of like, okay, everybody give me a few ideas and I'll work with that. That's one of the principles behind the Kids on Bikes game that's out there, where basically everyone on your table comes up with a few rumors about your town. And the GM's kind of sitting back there going, okay, these are the ones that are actually true, and we're going to do our adventure based off of those. But basically their improv is about expanding on an idea that somebody gave them. And the players, once again, have that ownership of, I came up with the idea that this was going to be about, sewer alligators or whatever it is.
Alligators in the sewers.
Oh, yeah. I grew up in the 80s, man. That was a very common threat. There was sewer alligators, and the Bermuda Triangle were probably what was going to kill me.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it was. Yep.
And there was also Chud, which was very classic. Now, when it comes to improv games, there was one, and I've been itching to run one of my friends through this. I just need a day where I've got one of them alone, and I don't want to do this one online, so I need to have them over with no agenda. And this one was for the cult game. This is totally possible to do in just about any role-playing game ever. I would actually love to see more stuff like this. It is a 2-page, maybe 3-page scenario called The Driver. And it's a one-on-one, but it's basically like, you are driving a muscle car through the Nevada desert. It is night. You are low on gas. What are you running from? And then you give them 3 choices. It's a heist gone wrong. You're running from this enemy from your past, or your former boss that you somehow betrayed. It's like, okay, well, what do you have to your advantage? And it's like, you have a half-full pistol that's got special ammo. Doesn't say what the special ammo is. An old World War I bayonet that might be cursed, or you have a friend waiting for you up ahead. And it's like, and ahead of you, as your car is puttering out of gas, you see and it's like an old hotel, a house, or a gas station that's got a diner attached to it. And the player chooses which one of those they want. And then it's just go. And then the other page of the scenario is pretty much, here's some ideas of what any of that stuff might mean. If they they choose one location and then they keep going, use the next location as the one that is the next one they find, or so on and so forth. But I really like the idea of the setup was, here are some choices, and you just give them to your player. And so you could literally run this many times, and no one's ever going to have the same experience, because they might choose different things, or they might appear in different orders, or what the parts that are alluded to, such as a pistol with special ammo. When the time comes, the GM or the player might decide a totally different thing of what that special ammo actually means. But it's this really cool framework to jumpstart an improvised adventure. And I remember when I read that the first time, I was like, my God, I have been playing for so many years. Why is this the first time I've ever seen a published scenario that was presented this way? Because I would, hell, I would love to see just pretty much a book with like 10 of these in there, because it's a toolbox that says, hey, here's some ideas and here's some ways you might employ them. Good luck. But it really gets the ideas moving. And it's like when Mike pulled out those cards, it was kind of the same thing where it's like, wow, having these 3 completely random ideas really does cause the inspiration versus okay, make up a game on the fly and go. And that's when, your brain locks up, because you have so many options that all of a sudden you have no options, nothing to build off of. So no,
that's absolutely right. It's not, as you say, it's helpful to have a bit of just something to get you going. And that kind of style of scenario, I think there are some similar kind of things on the Miskatonic repository. I know that some of the scenarios that Alan Carey, Alan has done on the his sort of very short scenarios, is kind of a bunch of kind of cohesive ideas you can run off. One of them just won an Emmy. I think it was A Hand of Glory. They're reasonably defined, but they're very short. They're very open structured. They are kind of a bunch of ideas strung together that you can riff off. Perhaps not quite so much optionality as the way you've described, Seth, but very close to it. And certainly, I mean, please, somebody write me a book of 10 scenarios like you've just described, Seth, because that would be, I'd love to put that out. That sounds great.
The whole thing could be 30 pages long.
It'll look weird hardcover, though. I'm just going to say.
Well, that's where you just fill it up with art.
There you go.
Tons of art.
Tons of art.
It's pretty much just an art book with like a little text on every other page, and then you're done. Then, see, the only other things that I did want to kind of bounce ideas off of, because to me, Call of Cthulhu is more than a horror game. To me, it is an investigative game than anything else. So part of what always it kind of gets me when I'm thinking of a Call of Cthulhu scenario is always, what is the mystery to it? Which, of course, it's not always. Sometimes there's survival games, but I always have a desire for a mystery, something that must be researched and discovered or figured out in order to stop the threat or just finish the quest. So do you have any ideas on ways that you can employ a mystery that, once it's done, feels like it makes sense? Because one of the problems with kind of making up a mystery as you go is you want them to be able to sit there and go, yeah, that makes sense afterwards. As far as it feels like that was the plan.
Yeah, I guess, using the card mechanism, I was coming up with a plot there, and I sort of said, well, this is the cultist who's behind it all, and maybe it's a spell, maybe it's a ritual, maybe kind of thing. I was just throwing out kind of ideas I hadn't really shaped yet.
Actually, and that one was working for me.
And so, in that way, I guess if I just spent another 10 minutes before the game, rather than just having 10 minutes, I had 20 minutes before the game, I could then use that to decide, well, it is going to be a spell that is cast that is kind of affecting the whole area. Maybe you kind of, put too many magic points into it, super powered or something, I don't know. But he's done something and really upped this spell that is causing this strange melody, and so that's the kind of the backbone of the plot. And in terms of the mystery, it's really a case of what all a mystery is the pieces of information that the players pick up to build a picture that explains the mystery. That's all a mystery is. It's just a sequence of information that allows them to get to an endpoint of revelation, which is what the mystery is or what is behind the mystery. And so, I don't think you need to work too hard to kind of get that kind of backbone together. Obviously, with a mystery can be very straightforward, like what I've just described, which is fairly linear. Obviously, mysteries can grow and grow and grow and be very, very, twisty turny with lots of branching paths and trees. I mean, you take a crime mystery is obviously a great way to learn mysteries because there's so many of them and they're so accessible in books and TV and films. But I don't know if you ever watched the Swedish kind of police procedural kind of The Killing. There was 2 series, it was a whodunit, a girl is killed the first episode, and the whole mystery is over 2 seasons who was the murderer. And the reason they do it for 2 seasons is because they do all this branching networks of they go, well, they lead you to think it must be person A, and then there's 2 episodes while they investigate person A, and get all the way leading you to think that it's got to be this person because all the evidence is pointing that all the things they've found out, and they get to the end of that tree branch, and it's not person A because they suddenly discover that they had an alibi they haven't discovered, or he's got the wrong DNA or whatever it is, and then they do that. Repeat over 2 seasons till finally they catch the villain, and it was the person, all along who was standing next to the body at the first episode kind of thing. And that's cool if you want to kind of stretch it out. All it did to me was really frustrate me going like, wow, 2 seasons for this. However, so you can make it as convoluted as you like in that way. I guess what I would say is that, yeah, I agree. Call of Cthulhu is often a mystery, but mystery is a really broad term. And if you go with my kind of, synopsis of that, it's like mystery is just information to get you to an end point. It doesn't have to be a mystery in the conventional sense. I tend to think of particularly one shots and short, 2, 3, 4 session scenarios kind of thing. I try to think, a bit like David Lynch makes films in terms of it. You present a mystery, which could be an event or anything, something weird has happened that the players are drawn into. And then when you get to the end of the David Lynch film, you still don't know what really has happened, but it's been a lot of fun to get there, and strange, really creepy things have happened on the way, which is basically what a role-playing game session is normally like. And to me, I used to be when I played and run games, people would say to me, okay, we got to the end, we think we can, this is what happened, and so yeah, but why did this person do that, or why did this happen, and what was that mystery, shape in the woods that we never really found out about? And often I would kind of then explain the plot to them, and everyone kind of is satisfied, and oh yeah, okay, fine. But I think it's a bit like describing the monster. I think when you describe a monster, rather than show an image of a monster, you leave room in the player's head for their imagination to do the work, because showing them a monster just makes it a 2D thing that's kind of like, well, it looks like a deep one, doesn't it? But when I describe a deep one, it doesn't look like a deep one. You wouldn't instantly, necessarily think it's a deep one if I choose to describe it, using marginal information or, smoke and mirrors and that kind of thing. It makes it more creepy, and the players build it up more. It's like, less is more in horror often. And it's the same with the plot and the mystery. Because I think, most of the times now I don't explain the plot at the end. I say to them, what do you think it is? And I allow them to kind of get their theories out, and they all have a big conversation. I nod sagely and and ah, maybe. And they love that. They love kind of getting their viewpoint on and kind of discussing what they thought it was. And then they all turn to me, and for me to kind of like nod and go, oh yeah, you were right, or you were wrong, or, or whatever. And I just go, yeah, great, good theories. Yeah. And leave it there, because that will play in their heads far longer than me going, no, it was 2 deep ones. It kind of kills it in a way. So I don't really worry too much about, I want the players to remember the game. And the best way to remember the game is to sometimes when they don't know everything at the end, they didn't quite solve it all, or they solved enough to get to a good climax, but all the loose ends don't always need to be tied up. Is my view. And I mean, people, I'm not necessarily the arbiter of all gaming fun. So, people are quite, within their purview to explain away and enjoy it that way. But for me, I think, players often like that open-endedness sometimes. And so, so in that sense, if you're building a mystery, you don't necessarily need to have all the ends tied up, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You can leave a few loose ends.
Okay.
I like sage advice.
And then also, there's always Chandler's Law. When in doubt, have a guy come through the door with a gun.
Yeah, it's what we used to say when I worked on Dark Heresy. If the game, if you're not sure what to do in the 41st millennium, have the Inquisition knock on the door. It's the Inquisition, because something will happen. So, absolutely. Chandler's Law is absolutely still alive and kicking. It's like in Call of Cthulhu, it's either a private eye, the police, or some cultists or gangsters knock on the door. I mean, one of the four, it doesn't really matter which one. Something will happen, and it will move the game forward. So that's why many scenarios have a few a police officer or a couple of gangsters who aren't really heavily attached to the plot, but they're there, and they can just fade into the background and never appear. But if you need something to happen, you've got the characters on hand to get involved and just cause a bit of trouble to get the blood flowing, as it were. That's definitely a good tip.
I like it. I like it a lot. Mike, thank you so much. I think this was a fantastic topic. Really appreciate your insight.
Enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I enjoyed. It's not. It's so. It is really rare for me to improv a game these days, because most of the time, if I'm running Call of Cthulhu, I try and use the time well. So I'm play testing material, either stuff that I'm writing or somebody else has written that I'm now play testing to get a kind of a view on it. And so often, because I'm play testing, I am using what is written. I'm not making it up. I'm not riffing off the text like you would do at home necessarily. I am playing 100% what is written, because I'm testing what's written to make sure it works for everyone else that reads it. So the opportunity to just like when my friend said, we just run a game, and I haven't got time to read another scenario. I'm in the middle of writing a book. I haven't got time to learn a new scenario from scratch. I'm just going to do it improv. It was great. It's really, because it really is really liberating in that way, because you just you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about any prep. You can just turn up, 5 minutes, pick a few cards or write a few notes and go with it. So it's very liberating. So for me, this conversation is really cool, because often I'm talking about books and published things or things I'm writing, and so this is totally different. This is all about just being creative and cool, and not worrying about all the the dotting the I's and T's. So for me, it was really refreshing and exciting too. So thanks for the opportunity.
And hopefully we'll get you back. I will say, since the last episode, I watched Rec off of your recommendations, and I enjoyed it. So thank you for that. Because I made a list of all the movies you guys are kind of throwing out, and so I started with that one, and I will have Rec 2 as my next one. And I do remember the trailers for the American version, Quarantine, just based off of the final image in the movie. It's like, wait, I've seen this somewhere else, and it was the trailer for the other version.
That's the one. Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm sure you will enjoy Rec 2. I'm sure you will. So, great, good stuff.
Thanks for coming, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. And we have a Patreon. If you're interested in joining our Patreon, link will be in the show notes. It's www.patreon.com/Modern Mythos. And we have a Discord server. Please come join us there. I'm on it every day. there's a lot going on there. So please join us on Discord. We'll have a link in the show notes to join our Discord.
And we also want to thank John Sumrow for our badass logo. He is a very talented artist. Please follow him on Facebook. Check out his official website. Please consider joining his Patreon account. Once again, links in the show notes.
And finally, we want to thank Darkest of the Hillside Thickets for their generously allowing us to use their song Gluttony in our intro and outro music. If you're a fan of Lovecraft's writing and the Call of Cthulhu RPG, you really need to check out Darkest of the Hillside Thickets. Please check out their Bandcamp site and their official show site, their band site. Links will be in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.